After all this, was it worth it?
Go look in the bag.
You see it? Yeah, Jimmy.
That's what it's all about.
Hey, what is up? So, following the cold opening scene of the Season 6 premiere of Better Call Saul entitled Wine and Roses, which displayed to us Saul Goodman's home for the first time ever in the entire universe of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, due to the overt opulence of this home, for this video, I want to try to answer the question of how much money was Saul Goodman worth over the course of the plot of Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. Now, of course, while we truly have no way of exactly knowing how much money Saul Goodman is worth, and we also don't know if Saul Goodman was already this wealthy based on the display of this home over the course of Breaking Bad before he aligned himself with meth kingpin Walter White, and where exactly this wealth may have come from before this, irrespective of this, I still want to try to take an in-depth look at the money that we know that Saul Goodman made over the course of Breaking Bad. But before we do this, we first need to set the scene of where Saul Goodman's net worth currently stands as of the conclusion of the first 2 episodes of Season 6 of Better Call Saul. So, following the events that transpired in the episode entitled Bagman, where Jimmy received $100,000 from Lalo Salamanca for picking up his bail money at the border, this $100K minus what Saul has already spent so far pretty much makes up the entirety of Saul Goodman's net worth at this point in time, as he really has no other assets to speak of other than what I suppose he is legally entitled to as a result of his marriage to Kim Wexler, but that is neither here nor there, as Kim is clearly not overtly wealthy by any standards at this point in time in the plot of Better Call Saul. But of course, it should be noted that the final episode of Season 5 of Better Call Saul did display to us that Jimmy and Kim are currently entitled to 20% of the common fund share of the Sandpiper Crossing settlement, which comes out to around $1.7 million. And this is really the only real major amount of cash that Saul Goodman, as well as Kim Wexler, his wife at this point in time of course, currently have the potential of earning concretely in the not too distant future in the plot of Better Call Saul. And so now with the backstory of Saul Goodman's current net worth being set, getting into the known amount of money that Saul Goodman made over the course of Breaking Bad, the first known major payday that Saul achieved as a direct result of his association to Walter White took place in Season 2 of Breaking Bad in the episode entitled Phoenix, where Saul earned 20% of the $1.2 million deal that Walt did with Gus Fring for their 38 pounds of methamphetamine.
How much?
How much what?
How much did you get for the deal?
1.2 million.
600,000 each.
480,000. Saul's cut is 20%.
Amounting to $240,000 for Saul. Then, after this, we really don't see the next real major payday that Saul was able to achieve in this series until Season 3 of Breaking Bad in the episode entitled Moss, where Saul agrees to take a 5% commission for laundering Walter White's $3 million for 3 months of his time contract with Gus Fring.
That's $3 million for 3 months of my time.
Well, you're going to need that money laundered, right? I mean, of course. What was our deal before? 17%. Yep, that's a shade high. Yep, let's settle on an even 15. That's a nice round number.
5%.
I'm a reasonable guy. It's a short-term deal. 10 even, but I can't go any lower and still respect myself. 5.
Amounting to $150,000 for Saul. Then, following this, we can infer that after Walt extended his contract with Gus Fring in the episode entitled Kafkaes to $15 million per year open-ended,
I want security for my family.
Then you have it. $3 million for 3 months. That was our agreement. Extended annually, $12 million a year. Call it 15. Open-ended.
If we assume that Saul got this 5% of this money, this would then bump up his $150,000 for 3 months to $175,000 for 1 year. But of course, that being said, it should be noted that season 4 of Breaking Bad, in the episode entitled Problem Dog, revealed to us that Walt ended up splitting this $15 million per year contract with Jesse Pinkman, when it was revealed to us that he earned $7.5 million a year.
Are you telling me you make $7,125,000 a year?
7.5 even. Before expenses.
And it should also be noted that Skyler was now the one laundering Walt's money via the car wash, so I am not sure if this 5% handshake agreement that Saul had with Walter White applied here. Not to mention that Walt would end up killing Gus Fring following him having earned at least around the $617,226.31 that was given to Ted Beneke by Skyler as part of the storyline surrounding Skyler's complicity in Ted's felony tax evasion, thus amounting to a little more than $31,000 theoretically that Saul would have been able to earn as part of this handshake agreement, depending on the total amount of money that Walter White ended up earning during his contract with Gus Fring. So as we can see, through 4 entire seasons of Better Call Saul, which concluded in the year 2009, about 5 years in the future from the current point in the timeline of Better Call Saul, the only real concrete large sum of money we know Saul Goodman earned via his time with Walter White was this $240,000 he got for facilitating the very first drug deal that Walter White did with Gus Fring, which is a rather small sum of cash compared to the $1.7 million potential Sandpiper Crossing payday. And actually, other than this, we can infer that Saul Goodman's only real significant major payday with Walter White actually came near the end of his teaming up with the meth kingpin, when Walter White in season 5 of Breaking Bad teamed up with Declan for distribution in the episode entitled Say My Name. And while we don't know specifically from the plot of Breaking Bad what role Saul had here specifically, as Skyler was now the one seemingly laundering Walter White's money via the car wash, if we nonetheless extrapolate out that based on the fact that Walter White stated in the episode entitled Ozymandias that the money he earned in the montage scene in the episode entitled Gliding Overall that he ended up burying in the desert amounted to $80 million.
I have money! I have money! It's buried out here. It's $80 million.
If we say that Saul was entitled to, say, 5% of this money, as per his previous handshake agreement with Walter White, and as per what he was earning as part of this operation when Mike and Jesse were still a part of it, of $54,000 per cook of the $1,100,000, all 3 of them were earning, also amounting to right around 5%.
For you and me, $367,000 each.
Goodman's cut, $18,000 from each.
That would give Saul around $4 million for his role in this operation, depending on what percentage of the original total earnings of Walter White's drug empire Saul was entitled to. But of course, we can't know for sure based on the lack of concrete information about this storyline in the plot of Breaking Bad. But at the end of the day, just for the sake of argument here, while $4 million is a lot of money, it is still nowhere near the friend of the cartel private jet money that Saul Goodman discussed in the episode entitled JMM in season 5 of Better Call Saul.
He said I'd be a friend of the cartel.
Friend of the cartel.
You know what that means? It means money. Ranch in Montana kind of money. Like private jet kind of money. Press conferences, TV news, the works.
I mean, he probably could have bought a smaller, less expensive ranch in Montana, though, I guess. That being said, just as a quick side note here, While we don't know when exactly in the timeline Saul Goodman was able to earn enough money to afford a house like this that we saw in the cold opening scene of the season 6 premiere, it should be noted, however, that during the Gene Takovic timeline of Better Call Saul, which of course takes place immediately after Saul fleeing Albuquerque for Nebraska at the end of Breaking Bad, it was presented to us as part of this timeline that Gene was in possession of a large quantity of diamonds that we saw in the Band-Aid tin in season 5. So maybe, and I am of course just speculating here, these diamonds have something to do with him transferring these millions of dollars he earned with Walter White in season 5 of Breaking Bad into an asset that was more easily transportable. As I have seen some theories online suggesting that following Saul's ordeal in the desert in the episode entitled Bagman of lugging around $7 million in cash, he then made the decision in the future that it would make much more sense to transfer his wealth to a more transportable medium should he ever have to flee as he did at the end of Breaking Bad. But of course, it is also possible that he acquired these diamonds prior to him teaming up with Walter White as well, depending on what is presented to us surrounding the storyline in season 6 of Better Call Saul. But now, going back to that house that Saul Goodman lived in that was displayed to us in season 6, due to the fact that this house looked like it cost in the range of the millions of dollars, including everything he owned inside of it, the question I have is, when exactly was this home built and or renovated in the interior to look like that, and how was Saul able to afford it, as that $4 million at least that he earned with Walter White did not come until the year 2010, almost 6 years in the future from where we currently stand in the timeline of Better Call Saul. So is it possible that Saul may have only lived in this home for a few months prior to him having to flee for Nebraska when the shit hit the fan with Walter White's meth empire? But of course, we can't know for sure until more information is revealed to us about the money that Saul Goodman made in the plot of Better Call Saul prior to him teaming up with Walter White in the plot of Breaking Bad. And interestingly, that being said, also following this cold opening scene of Saul Goodman's house this season, after watching this scene, I found myself thinking back to the teaser that was released prior to season 6 on the Better Call Saul Twitter page about Saul Goodman with the caption of, "It was never just about the money." And so the point I'm trying to make here in this video is that over the course of the entire series of Breaking Bad, we can see that Saul never made the enormous quantity of money that he discussed in the episode entitled JMM, while teaming up as a silent partner with Walter White. And while for the sake of argument, $4 million is a little more than double the $1.7 million from the Sandpiper Crossing settlement, in my humble opinion, what it took to earn that money just really exemplifies the risk of criminality that Saul Goodman was willing to undertake, which eventually, for example, led him to having to have a nuanced discussion on the virtues of child poisoning as Saul had to have. Especially if Saul was already this wealthy when he made his initial decision to partner with Walter White in season 2 of Breaking Bad.
Right now, you're Fredo. But, with some sound advice and the proper introductions, who knows? I'll tell you one thing, you've got the right product. Anything that gets the DEA's panties in this big a bunch, you're onto something special. And I would like to be a small and silent part of it.
And so at the end of the day, like this teaser is saying, and as we can see by the canon of Breaking Bad, I really find myself asking the question of if Saul had access to all of this money, after all the aforementioned things that he went through at the end of season 5 of Better Call Saul that clearly caused him a great amount of PTSD, on top of whatever will happen to him over the course of this season as well, why was he willing to put himself through this all over again of what he just went through with Lalo and the cartel when partnering with Walter White? And really, everything that Saul Goodman did over the course of Breaking Bad, following him teaming up with Walter White, really appeared to never just be about the money and was clearly about something much more as well. And I think what this quote-unquote "it" is for Saul Goodman will likely be displayed to us this season surrounding the storyline of Saul Goodman's, evolution into becoming the bus bench, billboard, late night commercial, methamphetamine distribution facilitating criminal lawyer that he became in the plot of Breaking Bad. And so heading into the remainder of season 6, I think this house will play a very large part in answering the question of why Saul Goodman acted out in the way he did and became the person he was. The full embrace of the Saul Goodman character compared to him following the conclusion of the first 2 episodes of season 6 of Better Call Saul, seemingly being a million miles away from this. And while we can only speculate on how this nuance and character development will be displayed to us this season, as well as what role Kim Wexler will play in the storyline as well, I nonetheless absolutely cannot wait to see how the money that Saul Goodman will obtain over the course of Better Call Saul, as well as the story behind this house, will be displayed to us on screen this season, as part of answering this overarching question of who exactly is Saul Goodman. Alright, that is all I really got for you guys on this one. As always, major shout out to everyone who watches and comments on my videos. I really appreciate it. Also, major shout out to everyone who has subscribed to my channel. I really appreciate that as well. I've really enjoyed making these videos as we all wait for the next episode of season 6 of Better Call Saul on Monday, and I absolutely cannot wait to watch and review that episode live on YouTube next week. And as always, my name is Anton Jackson. Thank you again so much for watching this video.